The night before the merger wedding, I was so furious I blocked Asher. At the ceremony next day, eyes ringed and black, he ground his teeth as he slid the ring on me. Lily, 3 years is 3 years. What the hell does blocking me mean? I was afraid you'd spam me with work files at midnight, I said, righteous. He gave a cold laugh. There's only one thing I send after midnight, which is. He leaned to my ear and dropped his voice. I miss you. Later I found out he hadn't lied, 'cause I miss you was a verb, and he excelled at drawing inferences. Before we go on, please subscribe and tell us where you're listening from. I just swallowed a bite of braised pork, chopstick still in the air, when Dad cleared his throat. Sweetheart, stop eating. Go wash up, you're getting married tomorrow. My chopsticks clattered down. Who's getting married? You. To whom? Asher. I glanced at the fragrant pork in my bowl, then at Dad's beaming face, and started wondering if the meat was poisoned or if he'd been body snatched. Dad, I said, fighting to stay calm as I rested the chopsticks across the bowl, which planet have you been touring? Is marrying your sweetheart to her arch-nemesis trending there? Dad smoothed his beard, grinning like a cat that had stolen salmon, crow's feet shining with triumph. Forgot to mention, we're bankrupt. So you sold me? How crude, he said, solemnly lifting his teacup. This is resource integration, asset restructuring, a family merger. When you were 7 you swore you'd marry Asher. I remember, I'm making your dream come true. I slapped the chopsticks on the table. I'm not going. I was 7, should a 7-year-old be held to every word? Fine. Dad pulled out his phone and began scrolling. I'll call your mother and say you refused to sell yourself to save the house. I pinned his hand. Am I allowed to keep a few cards? The merger dowry the Sterlings paid is all in your name, he said. Plus several properties, 2 cars, and 3% preferred shares in Sterling Group. I stayed silent for 3 seconds. Dad, what time tomorrow? He patted my shoulder, pleased. Smart girl. Truly my sweetheart. I went back to shoveling rice, crunching the pork like an enemy. Arch nemesis it is, at least he's a loaded one. Halfway through, I looked up again. Dad, does Asher know? Dad set his cup down. He knows. Yesterday his father called, he was listening the whole time, said nothing, asked only 3 questions before hanging up. My chopstick stopped. Which 3? First, does Lily agree? I blinked. Second, does the dowry go to her or to Uncle Lily? I stayed quiet. Third, Dad said, meeting my eyes, can they move the wedding up? A night bird swooped past the window, giving a single cry. Dad lost the teasing look, rare seriousness settling in. Sweetheart, that boy hasn't dated anyone these years. I looked down, pushing a slice of ginger aside. We're not close, I muttered. Haven't spoken in 7 years. Really? Dad stood. Then why is the drawing you did in middle school framed in his study? The door shut. I sat staring at the cold pork for a long time. Wedding day. In the bridal lounge I stared at the mirror, barely recognizing the heavily painted face. It felt like a pig spruced up for slaughter. Not ugly, just, not me. The makeup artist painted on glassy gloss, the trendiest. All I saw was lard I'd forgotten to wipe off. Bestie cracked sunflower seeds beside me. Stop shaking. I'm not. Your skirt's swaying. Must be the wind. There's no wind indoors. I glared. She zipped her lips and tossed the shells into the bin. The door opened. Asher walked in. 7 years, and the man had grown unfairly handsome, the suit impeccable, shoulders broad, legs endless. That familiar, punchable aloofness had ripened, once merely cold, now deep and unfathomable, a midnight lake. Only the dark circles gave him away, looked like no sleep at all. He halted 3 steps off, neither closer nor farther. Well, awkward. I waited for him to speak first. Finally, Lily. I lifted a hand and blurted, hi. Eyes lowered, voice rough around the edges. What did blocking me mean? Squirming. He stepped forward. WhatsApp, calls, PayPal, even the game friends, erased. I blinked. Another step. We have a contract marriage, sure, but how do we communicate if you blacklist me? Reflexively I backed up until the vanity pressed my spine. Still he advanced. I lifted my chin. I was afraid you'd spam me with spreadsheets at 2 a.m. He stopped. then smiled, nothing polite or distant, a thin, predatory baring of teeth that spelled you're done. There's only one thing I send after midnight. Wary, I asked, which is? He bent, distance collapsed. One hand braced on the countertop, caging me between mirror and chest. Glass chilled my bare back through the gown. His breath grazed my cheek, faint Sophie pine clung to his collar. Voice dropped to a whisper, like sharing contraband, I miss you. My ears ignited. Nina, choking on sunflower seeds, filmed one-handed. I tried to shove him, palms met cotton over a racing heart. He didn't budge. Head lowered, lashes casting shadows, he studied me. Ring, he said. Put it on, let me see. I froze. He produced the box, flicked it open. A galaxy of diamonds glittered against black velvet, a center stone ringed by stardust. No stylist, no officiant, just the three of us. He asked, hand. Somehow I offered it. He cradled my fingertips, slid the ring home in one deliberate glide. His thumb brushed my knuckle, he hesitated, lashes trembling. Done. He retreated a pace, tone re-iced, keep it on, don't lose it. Then he was gone. When the latch clicked, Nina swooped in. Was that him flirting? Silent, I stared at the band. His warmth still circled my finger, and something was engraved inside the shank. I turned the ring and looked. 2 letters, L and Z. L was for Lily, Z for Sterling. I stared at them for a long time. Nina leaned over, took one glance, and sucked in a breath. That ring, isn't it custom made? I said nothing. When the ceremony began, what the officiant said, what vows we exchanged, I couldn't remember any of it. I only remembered that when he said I do, he glanced at me. Not the tender way a groom looks at his bride, but something else. A look I couldn't read. The reception ended. Night. Inside the penthouse suite. I wrapped myself in the quilt, only my eyes exposed, staring at the ceiling. The water in the master bath stopped. The door opened. Asher stepped out in a robe, hair still wet, droplets sliding down his jaw, over his Adam's apple, vanishing under the collar. I looked once, looked again, then squeezed my eyes shut. Damn it. His looks are going to be my downfall. Lily, he said, a smile in his voice, aren't you hot, bundled up like that? Nope. Then open your eyes. Nope. Why? Scared I'll go blind. He gave a soft laugh. Footsteps approached, the mattress dipped. I held my breath. He didn't come closer, just sat quietly. After a moment he said, you weren't like this when we were kids. I opened my eyes. He tilted his head, hair still damp, droplets falling from the ends into his robe, a small patch darkening over his collarbone. The neckline gaped too low. I couldn't help glancing at that faint mole again. When we were little, you chased me every day, blew up my butt with firecrackers, yanked my hair, stuffed toads in my backpack. Me, you hit me with a ball first. That was an accident. Who believes that? He went quiet, then said, it was true. Outside, a car passed in the distance. He didn't wait for an answer. Someone had slipped a love letter into your desk that day, he murmured, eyes down. I hit you with the ball because I wanted you to look up. I froze, confused. Look up for what? His gaze dimmed, his Adam's apple bobbed, but he didn't answer. After a while he stood. You take the bed, I'll sleep on the floor. He walked to the wardrobe, pulled out a quilt. I watched him spread it, his back to me. The robe collar was loose. When he bent, a sliver of nape showed. The line of his spine hidden beneath the fabric, shoulder blades rising slightly with each motion. I swallowed without thinking. Asher. He looked back. I lifted the quilt corner. He didn't move. The floor's cold, I said. Come, up here. He hesitated, then walked over and sat on the bed. The quilt was wide, an invisible line ran down the middle. He lay down, arms straight at his sides, perfectly proper. So was I. 3 minutes later. Asher. You're on my hair. He shifted an inch away. 2 more minutes. He shifted back. I said nothing, neither did he. In the dark, his hand crept over. First the pinky. It brushed the back of my hand. I didn't pull away. His whole palm covered mine, warm, dry, trembling almost imperceptibly. He gave a gentle squeeze. I squeezed back. His thumb swept across the base of my thumb. Once. Again. As if making sure. I don't know what time it was when I rolled half asleep toward the heat, face buried in the hollow of his shoulder. He smelled of shower gel and a lingering trace of Sophie's pine. He exhaled softly beside my ear. Arm tightening, he pulled me closer, chin resting on my hair. Lily, he whispered, do you even know what you're doing? I was already drifting. He said nothing more. In the darkness his lips brushed my forehead, light as a feather. And a final murmur, maybe it's better if you don't. When I woke, sunlight slipped through the curtains. I lay in Asher's arms, his chin on my crown, breathing steady. One hand curved over my waist, knuckles curled, touching me through the pajamas. I tried to inch away. His arm tightened. I lifted my gaze. He was awake, looking down at me. Morning, voice husky, morning. My face against his chest, I mumbled, morning. He didn't let go. In the morning light, the faint mole below his collarbone was stark, usually hidden by shirt collars, now exposed. I stared at it for 3 seconds, irregular, like a splatter of ink. His Adam's apple moved. What are you looking at? And nothing. I pushed up to sit. He lifted a hand to my nape, gently, no pressure, just fingertips resting there. I stilled, eyes locked. His thumb slid along my jaw to my earlobe, burning hot. He felt it. Without a word he rubbed once, then let go. Breakfast, he said, sitting up, voice back to its cool drawl. Ears scarlet from forehead to neck. A laugh slipped out. His back stiffened. I laughed harder. He didn't turn, but his ears darkened another shade. Second week of marriage. I arranged to shop with Nina. Asher had a meeting in the same tower. Before leaving he waited in the foyer. I finished tying my shoes and looked up. His gaze lingered on my hem for 2 seconds. It's colder today. Forecast says 68. Silent, he took a thin cashmere wrap from the rack and handed it to me. I draped it over my arm. The private lift doors shut. Only the two of us inside. He stood half a step behind me. I watched his reflection in the bronze panel. He watched mine. Floor numbers ticked down. Suddenly his little finger hooked my hand hanging at my side, testing. I didn't pull away. He entwined our fingers, thumb gliding over my knuckles, then full interlace. I stared at our joined hands, his joints larger than mine, veins faint beneath skin, nails perfectly trimmed. The lift stopped at B2. Doors opened. He let go. 30 seconds, start to finish. He stepped out, glanced back. What do you want for dinner? I stayed inside, heartbeat still skittering. Hot pot. He gave a small nod, the faintest curve at his mouth. Done. The doors closed. The car rose again. Alone, I looked at the back of my hand. His warmth seemed to linger. Outside the lift, Nina was waiting in the cafe. Why is your face so red? Elevator was stuffy. AC at 68 and you call that stuffy? I ignored her. While ordering, my phone buzzed. Asher sent a message, put on the cashmere wrap. I stared at it for a second, then glanced back at the window. The sun had slipped away at some point. The sky was a sheet of dull gray. How did you know it cooled off? He replied instantly. There's a tree outside your window. Its leaves have flipped pale. I stared at that message for a long while. Nina leaned over. What are you looking at? I tucked the phone away. Nothing. Then, silently, I slipped on the cashmere wrap. One weekend Asher didn't have to go to headquarters. At dusk he was on a video call in the great room while I curled on the far end of the sectional with a book. He wore silver-rimmed glasses, eyes cool on the laptop screen. When he spoke, his voice was low, just a clipped handful of words, and everyone on the call held their breath. I turned a page. From the corner of my eye I saw him glance at me, then look away. Half an hour later the meeting ended. He pulled off the glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. I got up to pour water, passing beside him. He reached out and circled my wrist. No pressure, just a gentle cuff of fingers. I looked down at him. He didn't lift his head. Instead his thumb settled against the soft hollow inside my wrist where the pulse was racing. Asher? Only then did he raise his eyes. Do you drink red? What? He drew an unopened bottle from the lower shelf of the coffee table. Gift from a partner. I don't really drink this label. He paused. You once posted that this brand was good. I blinked. That had been 5 years ago. He still remembered. Pop of the cork. Crimson wine streamed into the goblet, jewel bright under the lights. He handed it over, fingertips grazing mine in the exchange. I took a sip. He sat opposite, elbow on the sofa arm, chin propped on knuckles. No glass for him. He just watched me drink. When only a sip remained, he reached for the stem. Both of our hands closed on it at once. Neither let go. He studied the back of my hand. Then, still holding the stem and my fingers together, he set the glass on the table. Our balance shifted. He leaned in. My back sank into the cushions. He hovered above me, close enough that I caught the faint Sophie pine on his skin. Softly he asked, good wine? My throat tightened. Pretty, decent. His gaze settled on the corner of my mouth. You've got some there. I instinctively licked it away. His eyes darkened. He dipped his head. Not a kiss, just proximity, his breath brushing my lip corner. He stopped there, voice barely audible. Lily. Can I? I didn't answer. I simply slid my hand up and hooked the nape of his neck. He came down. This kiss was deeper than the one at the wedding ceremony. He caught my lower lip, sucked gently, released, returned, tasting. My fingers threaded his hair. The strands were unexpectedly soft, nothing like the man himself. He gave a low hum. Between parted lips I tasted the ghost of wine. I lost track of time until he drew back. Forehead to forehead, breath ragged. Asher. Yeah. Your ears are blazing. He said nothing. Instead he buried his face in the curve of my neck. A few seconds passed. Stop talking. The words were muffled against my skin, edged with a pout I barely recognized. Suddenly he felt like an oversized pup, icy on the outside, plush to the touch. I stroked the back of his head. He stilled, then pressed harder into my neck. Outside, city lights flickered on one by one. Asher got sick. Nothing serious, seasonal chill, low-grade fever. But he has this flaw, he never admits it. I only noticed because he came home 40 minutes early, moving slow. He'd brewed himself a ginger infusion and sat on the sectional, cup in hand, financial news droning though he stared past it at a potted pothose. I crossed to him and pressed the back of my hand to his forehead. He flinched slightly. I'm fine. 39 degrees is not fine. He drooped. I pried the mug from his fingers and tugged him toward the master suite. He followed like a docile kid. When he lay down he kept hold of my hand, voice faint but stubborn. Don't leave. I looked at him, fever flushing the corners of his eyes, lashes lowered, that usual frost melted away. A soaked puppy. I'm not. I'm getting a hand towel. He let go. I wrung a warm towel in the master bath and draped it across his forehead. Eyes closed, brow still knitted. I sat on the edge of the bed. His pinky hooked mine, eyes still shut. Lily. I'm here. The year you left for college, I ran a fever once. I stayed quiet, he went on. 39.5, lasted 3 days. He hesitated. That night I dreamed you came to Riverdale. I stood outside, couldn't go in. You kept crying, and however I tried I couldn't reach you. He opened his eyes. When I woke the pillow was wet. The room was hushed, only the distant hush of traffic. I studied the hand clasping mine, clean angles, dry pads, nails a faint petal pink. His hands really were beautiful. I curled my fingers around his. Asher. For the next 7 years I checked my phone every birthday. He frowned faintly. I didn't know what I was waiting for. My tone stayed light. Maybe for a certain jerk to say happy birthday. He held my gaze. Why did you stop? Because the waiting wore me out. Silence stretched so long I thought he'd drifted off. Then, sorry, hoarse, cracked. I flipped the towel to the cooler side. Fever's making you delirious. No need for apologies. No reply. He only squeezed my hand tighter. Later the fever broke. We never mentioned the apology again. But he started greeting me every morning and night. On business trips he'd drop a pin, no itinerary, just a photo of local sky. Captioned, clouds today or raining here. Before overtime he'd ask what I wanted for dinner. If I said haven't decided, he'd ask again half an hour later. Some nights a message arrived with just 2 words. Miss you. Next morning I'd stare at the screen for ages. Then answer, yeah. He'd fire back instantly. What does ya mean? I'd leave him on read. So he'd text a rolling Shiba Inu. One day he left his phone on the sofa mid-meeting. The screen lit. I caught a glimpse. The sticker folder was titled, She Likes. I turned the phone face down. My heart hammered. When Sophie showed up outside Sterling Group headquarters, I was home in a sheet mask. Bestie spammed me a screenshot, long hair, soft makeup, limited edition bag. Captioned, your husband's company just exploded. Oh, so what? I didn't blow up. Asher didn't see her. The next day she came again. The third day, too. On the 4th afternoon she blocked my front door. When I opened it she froze for a second. Probably hadn't expected the legendary Mrs. Sterling to be wearing a $3 sheet mask, pilled pajamas, hair clipped up with a cheap shark clip, and clutching half-eaten Sophie cake. Rowan? I waved her in. Come inside. She sat on the sectional, knees together, purse beside her, posture perfect. I poured her a glass of water. She took it, said thank you, then cut to the chase. In high school I was Asher's deskmate. I nodded politely. I liked him for years, wrote him 17 letters. I bit off another piece of Sophie cake. She watched me. He never took them. Her eyes dimmed. Not a single one. I stayed quiet. She looked down. His desk was always full of snacks. I thought they were gifts, but later I realized he bought them himself. He doesn't eat junk food. Every afternoon he stuffed them into his backpack and left. She lifted her gaze to me and kept talking. Then one day I saw him put those snacks into a girl's bike basket. That girl had straight bangs, a high ponytail, and rode an old bicycle with a rusty basket and a sticker of some big-eared cartoon on the left side. She smiled softly. In that moment I knew who I'd lost to. The Sophie cake melted on my tongue, cold slipping down my throat. Footsteps sounded at the door. Asher was home. He paused when he saw the visitor on the sectional, then looked straight at me. I still said nothing. He walked over and stood beside me. Very quietly, I didn't invite her. I know. He said nothing more, reached out, plucked the melting Sophie stick from my fingers, dropped it in the trash. Then he tugged a paper towel free and, head down, wiped my fingers, one by one, slowly, like no one else was there. Sophie watched, expression unreadable. Asher. He didn't even glance up. She had PE 6th period every Wednesday. You'd go to the vending stand for snacks. He paused. How did you know? Sophie smiled. Because every time you came back your ears were red. Asher stayed silent. When the last fingertip was clean he tossed the towel away and finally looked at her. Done? Sophie stood. Done. At the door she turned back. Asher. He didn't answer. She gave a small laugh. Good taste. The door clicked shut. The great room went still. I looked at Asher. He wouldn't meet my gaze, but his ears were scarlet. Asher. You bought me snacks every Wednesday in high school? His lips pressed tight. A few seconds passed. You get hypoglycemic when you run. He lowered his eyes. Grade 8, PE final, you collapsed after the second lap. The nurse said low blood sugar, carry candy. He paused. You never remembered. Wind lifted the gauze curtains outside. I stared at his lowered lashes. So you've been watching me that closely? I stepped closer. He stepped back. I stopped, head tilted. Why are you dodging? No answer. I brushed his earlobe. Burning. He caught my wrist, not hard, just resting his fingers there. Lily, I'm here. His Adam's apple bobbed. Don't look at me like that. Like what? He bent until our foreheads touched. Like you want to devour me. I curved my lips. Then let me? He didn't answer. Eyes down, lashes grazed my cheek. Then he kissed me. Not like the tentative one on the sectional the other night. This kiss carried something caged for years. He cupped the back of my neck, thumb brushing my hairline. Mouths tangled. I fisted his shirt collar. The fabric bunched, ignored. He pinned me against the foyer console. The corner dug into my waist. A small hurt I didn't mention. He broke away a breath, then went in softer, sucking my lower lip like tasting something rare. I opened my eyes. His lashes quivered. He was the one kissing me, yet he looked close to tears. I raised a hand and covered his eyes. He stilled, then went on, wet lashes brushing my palm. That night we barely spoke. He leaned against the headboard reading. I lay across his legs scrolling my phone. Between page turns his fingers idly wound strands of my hair, round and round. Drowsy, I thought I heard him whisper something, couldn't catch it. Next morning I opened my memo app. Sometime after midnight he'd recorded a voice note, 3:17 a.m. I tapped play. His voice was hushed, as if afraid to wake anyone. Lily, glad I waited. I listened 7 times. Outside, birds sang. Sunlight leaked through the curtains. He was still asleep, breathing slow, lashes fanned quiet. Watching him, I remembered the boy who every Wednesday crossed campus ears blazing to drop snacks into that rusty basket, then walked away before she ever arrived. Asher had to fly out of town. 3 days. Before leaving he lingered in the foyer after I'd slipped on my shoes. Cars waiting. Yeah. He didn't move. I reached for the door. From behind he wrapped his arms around me, chin on my crown, forearms locked tight over my waist. I looked down at the tendons rising along the backs of his hands. It's only 3 days. Silence. Then a near silent, you left for 7 years once. He buried his face in my hair. 3 days feels too long. Riverdale Departure Lounge. Before the security line he glanced back through the crowd, didn't wave, just stood there. I lifted my phone. I'll pick you up in 3 days. He read, looked up, a small curve at the corner of his mouth. Okay. First night without him I tossed until dawn. The bed was an ocean, the left side empty. At 2 a.m. I checked my phone. A message 3 minutes old. Can't sleep? I typed. How'd you know? Instant reply. Neither can I. Thinking of you. I I buried my face in the pillow. Next afternoon I bought a ticket. Landed at 9 p.m. He stepped out of the elevator after a late meeting and stopped dead at the far end of the corridor. I leaned against his hotel door, key card in hand. "It's your birthday tomorrow." His brows drew tight, mouth a hard line. "I came to deliver your gift." He still didn't move. I walked over and slid the keycard into his palm. Mission delivered. I turned. He caught my wrist. Hard. I was yanked into the room. The door clicked shut behind me. No lights on. The city's glow filtered through the sheer curtains, laying a thin sheet of light across the floor. He pinned me against the door, lowered his head until our foreheads touched. His breath was ragged. "Lily, what? Do you know what you're doing?" I didn't answer. I lifted my hand, fingertips skating up the line of his jaw, paused at the corner of his mouth. His Adam's apple dipped, voice low. "My birthday is next month." I blinked. "Is it? Must have remembered wrong." "Oh." I started to pull my hand back. He locked my wrist and pressed it to the same spot. "But you came." He bent his head. A kiss landed on my brow, the tip of my nose, the corner of my lips, my chin, my collarbone. Each kiss feather-light, like checking, like claiming. I fisted the hem of his shirt. Fabric tugged free from his waistband. He froze for a second, then kissed deeper. He lifted me onto the windowsill, curtains wide open. Below us, a galaxy of apartment lights. His palm cushioned my back against the glass. His mouth brushed my neck, softly, as if afraid to hurt, as if restraining. My fingers threaded his hair. He groaned. "Asher." He looked up. I met his gaze. "How much longer are you going to wait?" His eyes darkened. Then he kissed me. This time, not gentle at all. Truth is, I hadn't misremembered his birthday. I'd done it on purpose. Later I lay in his arms, the night skyline still drifting outside. He toyed with my fingers. The ring on my left hand caught the city lights. "Lily, what now? The 3-year agreement expires soon." I went still, then managed a no. He said nothing. I tipped my head to look at him. His eyes were downcast, lashes casting shadows. "Want to renew?" He watched me quietly. A night plane sliced across the sky, bright. He kissed me softly. "So, renewal?" I hooked my arm around his neck. "Yes." The corner of his mouth curved. "How many years?" I considered. "Your call?" He lowered his head and kissed the base of my ring finger, where the diamond sat, where his warmth lingered. 70, he said. "If that's not enough, we'll tack on more." One morning Nina texted, "Contract up?" "Renewed?" I was brushing my teeth. "Renewed. How long?" I set the toothbrush down, glanced back at the man still asleep in bed. The quilt had slipped to his waist, shoulder blades sketched by dawn, that faint mole below his collarbone, lashes down, breathing steady. I turned back. 70 years. "Morgan, what kind of marriage insurance is this?" I typed. "Lifetime policy, non-cancelable." She sent a string of ellipses. "How did the CEO react?" I replayed last night. He'd curled around me from behind, chin on my crown, arms cinched tight. Murmured, 70 years isn't enough. Voice muffled against my nape, half afraid I'd hear, half afraid I wouldn't. I texted. He said okay. Nina fired back a swooning sticker. I set the phone down. Russell behind me. A warm body pressed close. His arm circled my waist. Face buried in the hollow of my shoulder. Sleep rough voice. "Who are you chatting with?" "Nina." He grunted, eyes still shut. Lips brushed my shoulder blade. A whisper of a touch. The curtain gap leaked a sliver of dawn. His lashes swept my skin. I looked at the back of his hand resting on my hip. Knuckles sharp. The matching ring caught the light. Bright. Suddenly he spoke. "Lily, what again? After 70 years? I pretended to ponder. He tightened his hold. "I pre-booked 80. I paused, then laughed. "Asher, when did you book that?" He didn't answer. Ears scarlet. Sunlight crawled across the floor. I turned and kissed his crown. He stayed motionless, ears even redder. Adorable. One evening, we curled on the sectional. He reviewed documents, I read a novel. Whenever he turned a page, his fingers twirled a lock of my hair, round and round. My phone buzzed. "Nina, so, did you two make the renewal official?" I glanced at Asher, lashes screenlit, eyes down. I typed, "Yep." "Morgan, what kind of ceremony?" I thought. He asked. I nodded. Then he smiled a long time. "He's really, really cute." Nina sent a sugar shot gif. I set the phone aside. Asher flipped another page, fingers still wound in my hair. I studied him. Suddenly he said, That doesn't count as a ceremony. Me? He laid the file aside, pulled a tiny black velvet box from between the couch cushions, opened it. Inside, 2 plain bands, slim, silver white, engraved inside. He took the smaller one, cradled my left hand, spun the diamond ring once, gentle, slid the plain band on the same finger. The 2 rings nestled together, glowing softly. He looked up. This is, voice low, ears red. I turned the band. L and Z, same initials as the diamond, but hand-carved. I remembered years ago, Asher hadn't yet taken over Sterling Group. Weekends he'd escaped to his grandfather's workshop. An old bench, a set of gravers, dusk sneaking through the curtains, final stripe of sunset on his lashes. I touched the corner of his eye. Asher, yeah, look up. He lifted his gaze. I leaned in. A kiss on the corner of his mouth. 3 seconds. Then I pulled back. He stayed frozen. Outside, the last ray vanished, but the light in his eyes stayed. Thanks for listening to today's story. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and share with friends. We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales. See you next time.